Who's missing over there? Okay. Oh my God, this thing's still going on. I'm just missing a couple of councillors, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. All right. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to call the meeting to order now. And I have a little bit of information. I thought of that with I want to say welcome for starters to 2023 and the first council meeting of the year. And I thought we'd put together just a little statement for the public to understand what part of our job is here. I just thought I'd start off with this for the new year. So it's a statement of welcome. So I welcome all constituents attending both in person and virtually. Thank you for your interest in the work of Common Council. It's the role of City Council to provide good government to the City of St. John, providing services, facilities, safe and viable communities, and to foster the economic, social, and environmental well-being of the entire community. It's the role of City Council to set direction for the city and to provide oversight. This council has set direction through the completion of an excellent strategic planning process, and through other major plans. We have in place a dedicated and committed staff who work to implement these plans and to provide expertise and support to Council. At Common Council meetings, Council recognizes important days and events. I don't have a proclamation tonight, but there are lots of nights when I do. We share information about the community. We receive updates on important matters. We hold public hearings, and we make decisions on a wide variety of issues. There are many committees supporting Council, and many decisions that come to Council do so after considerable work by committees. So we have three very important council committees, which is your Finance Committee, your Growth Committee, and your Public Safety Committee. And there are many other committees. Both committee and council meetings are held in public and broadcasted so that the public may attend and see the work of Council. As mayor, it's part of my job to ensure that we have effective meetings. Councillors are to be commended. Councils are to be commended for its commitment to working well and effectively together in the interests of all constituents of the City of St. John. Today, I encourage all of us to remember our commitment to its highest standards of ethic conduct and making decisions in the very best interest of the city through good governance and exemplary leadership. And I look forward to the good questions and insightful comments and a great meeting this evening. We've got some interesting things on here for you. So, City Clerk, I'll get you to call our first item.
The land acknowledgement.
And that's over to the Deputy, Mackenzie.
Thank you, Worship. The land on which the City of St. John, or Menaquest, is situated is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik. The Wolastoqiyik, along with their indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq and Pescatamaquati, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s that protected their rights to lands and resources. Let us pause and reflect.
Okay, I'll ask us all to stand for the singing of the national anthem. Oh, I'm going to ask our city clerk to introduce it. Over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Reardon. Tonight, we're delighted to have a video performance of audio of Audrey Deming singing "O Canada." Audrey is a grade 6 a student and also a student at the Allison Dawn Music and Voice Academy. Audrey had prepared a live performance for December 12th. However, I regret that I had double booked that evening. And Laura Lyle of our communications department kindly made this video. So if you're watching the meeting tonight, Audrey, a warm hello from all of us around the council horseshoe table.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true of us common, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Audrey, if you're listening tonight. That was lovely. You're on our big screens here, so I guess it'll be the next big screen will be one of those big hockey games for you, probably. Anyways, wanted to say thanks again for the clip. Okay, City Clerk, next item.
The approval of minutes for December 12th, 2022.
December 12th, 2022. Councillor Harris and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
The approval of minutes December 19th, 2022.
December 19th. The deputy and Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Approval of agenda.
We have an addition, I believe. Hold
No.
on there. Yeah, we have 17-1 from,
Is defeated.
oh, sorry, we don't have an addition from closed, sorry. Councillor Harris has moved the approval of the agenda. I take a seconder on that. Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Disclosures of conflict of interest.
Seeing none, moving on. Next item.
The next is the consent agenda.
Consent agenda, over to you, Deputy, for
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move 5.1 through to 5.4, please.
5.1 through 5.4. I do have a question on that. Councillor Sullivan?
No question, Your Worship, just a comment on 5.3, the Community Investment Fund agreement with the province of New Brunswick with regards to design and hopefully construction of a proper boat ramp at the end of Millage Avenue. You know, we are a city that has the St. John Woolastook River and Kennebecasis on one side and the Bay of Fundy on the other, and we actually have no proper boat ramp facility except kind of the asphalt crumbling end of a street. So this is fantastic news, and again, another good example of the municipality partnering with the province on a project. So thanks to the province, Trevor Holder, who championed it on their end, and thanks to staff for moving it forward.
Excellent. Yes, I agree. Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. In the same light as Councillor Sullivan, I just want to highlight the rehabilitation of Marketplace West Park. Huge addition there. It'll extend Harbour Passage to the park, add park seating. It'll include the relocation of the Labour Bell to that space, landscape improvements in the square, in addition of parking spaces, new curb, sidewalk, and asphalt. Good addition and good investment in
Yes,
recreation.
it's excellent. It's also excellent
In a community that needs it.
for a community that does need it. Okay, so seeing no other questions, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
The next is members' comments.
The next is members' comments. Remember, team, this is your 2-minute speed round. I'm just getting my phone keyed up for timing. Councillor Hickey, over to you first.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I was just handed a St. John fact sheet on housing. I thought I'd highlight a couple pieces of it. Since 2016 to 2021, St. John has seen a 44% increase in home prices. A massive jump. Part of dealing with growth, part of seeing the increases in the real estate market across the globe. But certainly something that we need to keep in mind as we move forward on our legislation and our work with housing. Further to that, 1/4 of St. John households live in housing that is not affordable. 36% of those are renter households, 14% of those are owned households. When we look at the data from our CMA as a whole, suggests we have about a 70-ish% breakdown in terms of renters to owners, owners being the 70. Once we remove the outlying areas, once we remove our suburbs, St. John is about 50-50 from renters to households, which creates a lot of insecurity in our housing, as we all know, and signals the need for us to continue to take action on this file, continue to make sure that we are building neighborhoods that are defined by safe and affordable housing. Thank you. And happy 2023, first meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Killen, you're up next.
Thank you so much, Your Worship. Happy New Year, everyone. I want to give a massive shout out to the literal hundreds of people that showed up on Bayshore for our polar dip on January 1st at 10 a.m. To my co-conspirator, Naomi Drummond, she handled the next wave of folks. So I was there for 10 with Councillor Ogden and Councillor Harris. Councillor Harris got a fire going. The kids were all there. It was just a lovely day. And there apparently was literally hundreds of people at Bayshore all day long polar dipping. It was ideal weather. And to the swim-in women, there was a group we met who were a bunch of lovely young women who literally stayed out in the bay for almost 20 minutes in the cold water. It was so impressive. It's what they do on the weekly. So shout out to them. And if you want to join them, they have a group that goes all over southern New Brunswick to do that. It's a very interesting form of therapy. And also, I want to let everyone know that the Assumption Breakfast is back. This is a delicious breakfast at Assumption Center on Chapel Street, right down the street from where I grew up. So we used to go there all the time. This Sunday, it's coming up Sunday, January 15th, hosted by the Knights of Columbus. And it's only $10 for an adult or $4 for a child. And it goes from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So to Al Babineau and Hugh McGill and Marianne O'Hara and everyone who organized that and helped with it, big shout out to them for getting that back on the books. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Killen. That is a good breakfast. I've eaten a lot of those. But I don't know if the polar dipping's for me. Councillor Radwan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say a special thank you to the province and federal government. We got so many wonderful surprises at the end of the year, actually. $46 million for NBCC, $38 million for UNB, and $11.5 million for not-for-profit housing. I personally thank the Premier for all of his wonderful holiday gifts. And I wanted to make mention that the St. John Newcomers Centre has a fairly new program that provides legal support for newcomers, actually. So for any racialized newcomers. So you can always reach out to them if you have any questions about that. And they are also getting ready to start their Jumpstart program. For those of you that are not familiar with it, basically they get volunteers, and they're looking for more volunteers, my understanding, to help mentor newcomers, whether it be to do networking in our community, find jobs, whatever. So if you are interested in volunteering, you can reach out to them at 642-4242. And I also just wanted to say bonne année tout le monde, toute la meilleure dans la nouvelle année. And so happy New Year to everybody and all the best for 2023.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, or Deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of items. I'd like to give a shout out to St. John firefighter Melissa Martin. She was invited to speak at the Women's Changemakers Toastmasters Women in Leadership Levy on January the 4th. Melissa is a member of the St. John Fire Department, was one of 10 women who were asked to share their success stories at the annual event that focuses on leadership, motivation, and success as a way to inspire others and launch the new year. Congratulations, Melissa. Despite the warmer weather in St. John, occupancy rates at the city's 3 shelters, that being the Out of the Cold on the west side, Outflow, and Coverdale uptown, trended close to 85% during the month of December. There are currently 81 shelter beds in St. John, so they're almost at capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Councillor Ogden?
Over the holidays, I attended about 7 or 8 different events for newcomers to St. John from Ukraine, et cetera. And I would just say to people, do everything you can to make people feel welcome, even smiling at them on the streets and asking them how their day is. A number of them said to me that St. Johners are extremely friendly people, and that really stands out. The other thing is what Councillor McKenzie was just talking about. I've been over the new shelter about 4 times, taking clothes and that, and they're really looking for toiletries and underwear. And those are 2 things that they're really in short supply of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Norton, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Public school enrollment is up 323%, currently 17,824 in the Greater St. John area. Other quick facts: the Greater St. John area, over 132,000 people. More newcomers moving to the St. John area every single day. All those types of statistics and more quick facts are all available on Envision St. John's dashboard. So if any of those numbers interest you and more, everything within population, labor, real estate, tourism, trade, and quality of life, there is complete data sets that are live and changing every time you refresh that dashboard on Envision St. John's landing page. Easy to find, and no matter what space or sector you're finding yourself working in, I think you could find some of those numbers useful for informing you and your team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, City Clerk, over to you for the next item. What time is it?
Well, we're at 6:28, so maybe we could just do the correspondence, 15.1.
Okay.
And it's a submission to council from Tidal Heritage Development for Affordable Housing Grant Program, and the recommendation is received for information.
Okay, so I would take a motion to receive for information. I just thank Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Killen. I will let you know that the city has already reached out to Mr. Pottle and they have had a conversation with him. So this has just come through the kit. So on the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
So we're at 6:29. I could call the public hearing, which starts at 6:30.
Okay.
And it's a public hearing for 35 Water Street with Section 59 conditions.
Okay, so I guess, am I waiting until 18:30 to send it over? Okay. Yep. This is actually going over to Commissioner Hamilton first at 6:30. So Commissioner, as soon as your clock says 6:30, you can go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship, members of council, before you for public hearing is an application which was submitted by Fundy Harbor Group for a property located at 35 Water Street. This development, which is part of the larger Fundy Key project, is a catalytic project for the city. And as council is aware, we'll see a multi-phase mixed-use development on the site, which includes 5 buildings, 677 dwelling units, commercial uses, and new public spaces. Building on the approval that was originally granted for the development in early 2022, the application is seeking additional approvals to allow for the construction of the southwest building, which is a 6-story building located closest to the water, which would house 110 dwelling units and ground floor commercial space. This is in addition to the southeast building, which was approved by council in January of 2022. This approval is being sought to provide additional flexibility around the timing of the phasing of the development in order to commence development later this year. The application is also seeking other amendments to the Section 59 conditions, and I can add that the application has been evaluated by both staff and your Planning Advisory Committee against the applicable policies in the municipal plan, and included in your package are recommendations to approve the application. And with that, I'll turn things over to our Senior Planner, Mark Reed, to provide the staff presentation.
We're working on it, Mr. Reed. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Till we get the presentation up on the screen. As Jacqueline outlined, this application is for a Section 59 amendment for the Fundy Key development. The main crux of the application is the proponent is seeking approval to have some flexibility to begin construction on the southwest building, which is the 6-story building that would front onto the harbor in the southwest portion of the site. About a year ago, we were here and the site was rezoned, and at that time, approval was given for the southeast building, essentially between this proposed building that we're discussing tonight and Water Street. The proposed development would have ground floor commercial that would basically be oriented towards an extension of Harbor Passage, and then the upper floors would have approximately 110 dwelling units. As with the original design, there would still be a bit of an internal parking and circulation area in among the central area of the site between the 4 buildings. Some facade drawings here showing the preliminary design of the proposal. There's some differentiation of siding materials and cladding materials that provide for reduction and help to address the massing of the building between the lower and upper stories. And as well, it incorporates a lower story podium with the upper 5 stories stepped back from the main perimeter of the building. Some additional renderings of the other facades of the building as well. And then we have a rendering from the internal portion of the site looking out along the north wall of the building towards the water, showing the entrance for the residential component of the building. And as well, there would be some animation along the proposed Harbor Passage expansion, which would be an appropriate space for uses which serve to provide a connection to that public realm, such as restaurants or other commercial entities. The site consists of 3 parcels, was rezoned about this time last year to an integrated development zone. It's currently undeveloped. There is some work going on the site and also in conjunction with a city contract with respect to the market slip public space area. What the applicant is seeking, they're seeking for the approval of phase 2 of the development, which is the southwest building. They're also have requested to remove a condition that was imposed on the original rezoning that requires them to provide a minimum of 350 parking spaces. They are also seeking some flexibility to have interim uses on the site associated with construction activities, given it's a 4-building project that will evolve over a number of years, and as well site and construction offices, and potentially some interim surface parking, and also an allowance to provide for a deviation from the phasing plan, provided that the building design has been approved by the city and that our infrastructure development colleagues have signed off on the required water and sewer flows to be emanating from the development into our systems. In terms of the approval of the southwest building, the southeast building that was approved last year is 16 stories or roughly 60 meters. The southwest would be 6 stories in height, approximately 30 meters. The original Section 59 conditions that were imposed with respect to design would still apply. So materials, window ratios, massing, incorporating elements from the wind study that was completed for the development to minimize any impact from wind. So staff are recommending approval of that amendment to provide the developer with the flexibility to construct either of the 2 southern buildings. They're also seeking to remove the minimum requirement for on-site parking. The current conditions require the developer to provide a minimum of 350 spaces on the site. Staff note that it is within our parking exemption area for the Uptown Core, where no parking is required to be provided for new developments. It also is located within our urban core that provides for some additional synergies with proximity to services, employment, other day-to-day needs, and also proximate to some of our main transit hubs and routes in the city. If this amendment was approved, the onus would be on the developer to provide sufficient parking based on market demand to lease the spaces in the building. Staff do support this amendment. They're also seeking interim, the ability to provide interim uses associated with construction, surface parking, and site offices. Our current bylaw now does provide for a provision with respect to interim construction uses, but those uses have to vacate the site once the building's completed. It was originally put in the zoning bylaw for one-off construction of buildings and not larger projects such as this, where there is some synergy if materials have to be bought in bulk for 2 or 3 buildings and stored on site over a longer time. There's no provision for that in the bylaw. Given the nature of the site, a fairly sizable project where we're constructing 4 large buildings, staff are of the opinion that, it is a reasonable request to provide for, the storage and, some construction uses in the interim periods when those buildings are being constructed. We are recommending an amendment to the conditions that the screening or the view of those materials be screened from adjacent streets and properties to minimize their impact on the public realm. We also are of the opinion that it's reasonable that the developer have some flexibility to provide commercial surface parking as an interim use. We note that there has been some past parking as a past use of the site. So we are recommending a condition that a site plan be prepared for approval, showing landscaping and paving and where this parking would be provided for on the site if it is pursued. So staff are supportive of the interim use amendments. Deviation from the phasing plan, staff are basically supportive of that as well. Provided that the building has gained approval from the city, which as of, if this amendment is approved, those southernmost 2 buildings would be approved. And then it would be up to our colleagues in infrastructure development to work through with the proponent and their engineers to approve the water and sewer flows from the building. Staff are supportive of this approach because it does provide for flexibility to the developer to complete this project. In terms of community engagement, letters were sent to landowners within 100 meters of the site on November the 30th, and the advertisement for tonight's public hearing was posted on the website in late December. To date, we haven't received any letters, and we did not have any appearances from members of the public at PAC. The recommendation of staff and PAC, both of those recommendations are aligned to adopt the proposed amendments to the Section 59 conditions governing development on the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. So for the public, all of this information is in the kit. And the clerk's just reminded me, I am going to ask someone to check on Councillor Ogden because he has to be here for the public hearing session, which I will open when he gets back, and then I will close when we're done with that. But in order for him to vote on this, he has to be here to hear it. Good. Okay. Okay, I will open the public hearing now, and I'm going to ask if there's anyone here in the audience or online who would like to speak against the application. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against this application? And I will ask for the 3rd time if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the application. Okay, I will ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application. Anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here for the third time who would like to speak in favor of the application? Okay, I will now close the public hearing, and I will ask my councillors if they have any questions for Mr. Reid or Commissioner Hamilton. And if I'm not seeing any question, although I do have a question, sorry, Councillor Hickey. Oh, sorry, it's on my list here. Councillor Hickey, over to you first.
Your worship, I was hoping to ask the developer a couple questions, but I know they didn't present in the public hearing. Is it okay to do so now?
I assume so, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, normally it would be done during the public hearing, but
Yeah, okay. Who are you calling on?
Chris, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay. Come on down, Chris. I'll get you just give us your name, even though we all know it. Oh, wait, no, we need the red light on there. There you go.
I'm Chris Elias here on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you. Councillor
Thanks,
Hickey?
Chris. Just a quick one. I was just hoping you could walk us through the adjustment in the timelines, if you don't mind, and what the phasing implications are.
Sure. Great question. One I've received a few times before. So what the application we're bringing forward today is for Southwest Building, so for the second phase. And as Mark had mentioned, one of the Section 59 amendments that we're looking for is to get some increased optionality when it comes to pricing and sequencing for these phases. We've asked that the developer be allowed to deviate from the phasing plan as long as that building has already been approved by council and approved by the infrastructure department. So what the implications are for the actual timeline is that if we were to receive approval this evening, we've started our site servicing in this fall. So we've brought services over onto the site, and those, gotten most of the public access work done out of the way, and we'd be prepared. The intention is to start this second phase, I should say, Southwest Building, this summer during construction season.
So you'd be doing them both in tandem? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, not necessarily. We would. What the intention is here is to allow us, with the risks in at least that were in the construction market in the past year and that are still kind of having factors on construction pricing and timelines. This would allow us to price out both buildings, and we would have the option to do the two in tandem if market factors would allow it. The intention right now is to still sequence the buildings, but it gives us the option to do so, which would allow for some increased efficiencies and expedite the timeline a bit.
Okay, and second quick one. When you look at the makeup of the building in terms of units, phase one included some affordable housing, was apartment rentals. What's this one looking at? Like, is this condos or is it apartments?
So this, the intention is for this to be apartments. And affordable housing makes up the majority of our portfolio. It's a mainstay of us as a developer and owner operator in St. John. We're still working through our detailed unit schedules, but we're certainly exploring it in this building and more broadly on the entire site, how it's going to play into that.
Great, thank you very much, and thanks for your, I would call it bold vision on this property. It's exciting to see it continue to move. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess that's it for questions for you, Mr. Elias. Yeah, I think so. Seeing any other questions? So I'll pass it over to you, Clerk, for the motions that we require.
So we have two motions are required. The first motion is to rescind the previous Section 59 conditions imposed on January 24th, 2022.
We'll take a motion for that. The Deputy and Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
And the second motion is to adopt the sections 59 conditions as outlined in the agenda packet.
Adopting 59, section 59, the deputy and Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Excellent. Okay. Next item, City Clerk.
10.1, a zoning bylaw amendment with section 59 conditions at 51 Heather Way, third reading.
Commissioner Hamilton, over to you for an intro.
Yes, Your Worship, members of council, before you this evening for third reading is a rezoning application which was submitted by Andrew McDonald for a property located at 51 Heather Way in East St. John. The application is proposing to rezone the property from the 2-unit residential zone to local commercial in order to facilitate the development of a new daycare, and the application also involves subdivision approvals. The application received first and second reading on December 12th, following the required public hearing. And with that, I can confirm that all legislative requirements under the Community Planning Act have been met, and council is now able to move forward with third reading and approval of the Section 59 conditions and subdivision approvals. With that as an introduction, I'll turn it back over to Your Worship and the clerk for the required motions.
Thank you. Okay, City Clerk, I will pass it over to you to give us the motions that are required tonight.
We have 6 motions required tonight. The first motion is reading in entirety.
First motion is reading in entirety. Councillor Sullivan and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John. The zoning bylaw of the City of St. John, enacted on the 15th day of December 2014, is amended by amending Schedule A, the zoning map of the City of St. John, by rezoning a parcel of land having an area of approximately 3,583 square meters located at 51 Heather Way, also identified as a portion of PID number 55124341, 2-unit residential R2 to local commercial CL.
Thank you.
And the second motion is to rescind the previous Section 59 conditions imposed March 17th, 2008.
Motion to rescind previous Section 59 conditions. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
And the third motion is to impose or adopt the new Section 59 conditions as outlined in the agenda packet.
Adopt new Section 59 conditions. Councillor Killen and Councillor Radwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
The fourth motion is a reading by title.
Reading by title. Deputy and Councillor Killen on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John. And the fifth motion is that Common Council assent to the submitted subdivision plan in general accordance with the submitted tentative plan with respect to any required local government services easements.
Okay, Councillor Killen and Councillor Stewart on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
And the sixth motion is that Common Council accept money in lieu of land for public purpose dedication.
Councillor Killen and Councillor Radwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. All right, next item, City Clerk.
The next item is submission by councillor members, and it's guaranteed livable basic income by Deputy Mayor McKenzie.
Deputy, over to you for an intro to this one.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'll read my motion, and if I get a seconder, instead of going to the background, we have online with us Will Robertson from Carleton University, who's an expert in this field, and he's presented both to Moncton Council and Fredericton. So I will allow him to come forward and do a little background and answer any questions that you may have. Welcome, Will. Thank you. Whereas the growing social crisis and impacts of poverty have downstream effects on our municipality, putting unsustainable pressure on our limited resources to deliver necessary public services and social infrastructure supports as we struggle to keep up with the evolving needs of our community. And whereas basic income addresses key social determinants of health, such as income and housing, it can alleviate pressures on municipalities to address poverty and fill gaps in social supports such as shelter, housing, food security, and mental health. Research and pilots show that when people have a sufficient and secure income, their mental and physical health improves. They have the capacity to secure more affordable, suitable, and safe housing, childcare, healthy food, and transportation, and poverty rates decrease. Whereas the provision of a guaranteed livable basic income would benefit individuals, families, communities, and protect the most vulnerable in society, it would also support community resilience by facilitating the transition to a local economy that responds to the climate crisis and other major challenges. Evidence shows that a federally funded basic income that improves people's financial stability is possible, as successful income transfer programs already exist in Canada for seniors, old age security and guaranteed income supplement, and for parents, the Canada's Child Benefit. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the City of St. John directs the Office of the Mayor to write a letter to the Prime Minister, New Brunswick members of Parliament, and the Senate, the Premier of New Brunswick, and members of the Legislative Assembly of New Brunswick, and the Fundy Regional Service Commission, calling on these orders of government to work towards implementing a guaranteed livable basic income to eradicate poverty and homelessness and ensure everyone has sufficient income to meet their basic needs. So if I get a seconder, David? Okay, well, could you take it from there and give us an idea as to why this is a good idea?
Sure thing. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Your Worship, and members of Council for allowing me to come and speak to you this evening. I am a Monctonian, born and raised, and grew up there for the first 18 years of my life, and have experienced and seen the impacts of poverty as it's grown in my hometown, but also I did my undergrad at St. Thomas University in Fredericton, New Brunswick, where I saw a similar thing that all of us are facing in the province of New Brunswick and in our cities across the country. And so basic income resolutions, to give some context to council, have been passed in Fredericton, in Moncton, Halifax, the city of St. John's, and are also being considered in Pictou County in Nova Scotia and in Yarmouth. The motion before you was also passed by a resolution at the Union of BC Municipalities. So this is not just a regional issue, this is right across the country where these discussions are being had. I will also say to the jurisdictional point that MP Jenica Atwin in the case of Fredericton, and also Wayne Long, of course, in the city of St. John, is supportive of a basic income and has spoken to such effect publicly previously. So just to speak to the kind of jurisdictional concerns some may have. The motion before you is recognizing the reality of the situation we see before us in the province of New Brunswick, but of course in the city of St. John. And what we're asking is that we're calling on higher orders of government to work together to implement a guaranteed livable basic income. So to be clear, not a universal basic income. This doesn't go to everyone and anyone without any strings attached, to a certain level of a market-based measure of poverty. And I'm happy to answer any questions on that in particular, but that's what we mean when we say a guaranteed livable basic income. This has been worked on currently in Prince Edward Island, where a motion was supported unanimously by the PEI legislature to work to implement a basic income in that province. That work is ongoing. Newfoundland and Labrador introduced a basic income in this type of model for youth exiting care. That was announced just a month or so ago. And they have an all-party committee in Newfoundland and Labrador that's working to this end to implement basic income as well. And they've met twice now. So it's a regional discussion, a provincial discussion, and also one that all of our cities are facing the brunt of poverty. And so a guaranteed livable basic income could have huge positive impacts for not only those residents of St. John, Fredericton, and Moncton, but of course for all New Brunswickers and everyone facing the strife of poverty. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope Council has had some time to review some of the background material provided to you along with this motion. And I'm happy to answer any and all concerns or questions you may have on the matter. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. I do have a quick question here, I think, from Councillor Ogden, so I'm going to pass the speaker over to him.
Thank you, Professor, for doing this. It is a national problem. I just want to put something in context about St. John. About 35 years ago, I started organizing food bank drives for about 35 years. And the first 10 years, I didn't realize that it was so connected to purchasing power. And if you look at our incomes in the last 40 years, they do not sustain the purchasing power they need, which creates tent cities to shelters. And we're just seeing a proliferation of them. We now have 16 food banks. I think when we started, we had 1 or 2. So this has been going on for a long time. And I commend you on that, and it is a national issue. On the local issue, we lost a lot of federal and provincial tax dollars through legislation created in the mid-60s, and also because of the loss of major federal funding for some things in our area. So that has created even more poverty in St. John than Fredericton or Moncton, where incomes are higher. And we also have another local issue that we're working on, is to raise our level of education, which is lower than the other level cities in Atlantic Canada. So that, like, we have poverty on 2 levels here. One is a local and one is a national. But I want to commend you for this and making the point, because one thing that people say is when you say you're raising income, people, especially in small business, are saying we can't afford this, but poverty costs our economy and our society a lot of money. And what we spend on policing, social work, teaching, and we're seeing a proliferation of tent cities that we never saw before. And I think they've really drawn our attention to what's happening all across the country. So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Redwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a comment in general. I don't actually have a question, but I had actually spoken to Dr. Rob Moyer from UNB. He's one of the economist professors there, and we discussed a lot about the research that's been done, and there was a lot of research done in Manitoba, and they said that there were some groups that were concerned that people would refrain themselves from working if there was a basic income. The research actually showed that it was only showing that new moms or high school students took a little bit longer to get out in the workforce. But most of the research is quite favorable for this. I think it would help our senior population. We're almost up to 20,000 here in St. John. Of course, not everybody's low income, for sure. People on disability, single people on social assistance, people making minimum wage, and it would allow people to not worry about having a basic income when they would think about starting a business. One thing that I did want to mention, and I'm just kind of throwing it out there as a question, is if there is a way for our council to leverage our partners that we have at 8 cities and the FCM.
Thank you, Councillor. That is an issue at 8 cities already. Yeah. Councillor Hickey?
Thanks very much, Your Worship, and appreciate the presentation. Appreciate your local context as well. Do my best to not hold you being from Moncton against you. I think this is an important step and commend Councillor McKenzie for doing so. You know, we take on a lot of advocacy roles at the city, and I think this is an important one of those. I hope we don't lose sight of and continue to reflect on our need to be aggressive in challenging our status quo in City Hall so that we can do our best to make sure that we are bettering the lives consistently of folks who need it and take the steps within our ability to be able to do so, and make sure that we're giving folks the chance to take down those generational barriers that have been put in front of them. For me, that's things like we're doing tonight, having a big conversation about our changes to transit. It's about making sure, another thing we're doing tonight, taking hold of our vacant and dilapidated list so we can try and get more housing built in the community faster. Aggressively taking on affordable housing in the steps we have, like we're doing tonight. So a lot of that is reflective of how we are making sure we're taking down the barriers of poverty, and I hope we continue to try and challenge that status quo as it relates to a UBI. I think it's a clear step to address the crisis we're in, and I think it's a massive solution that I know this council is hopefully will be keen to get behind.
Councillor Sullivan.
And thanks, Your Worship, just quickly, and I appreciate the deputy for bringing this forward. Happy to have the expert come in to help fill us in as well. And I really just want to give a shout out to one of our guests in the audience, Randy Hadfield. When I saw this, I had some questions about it and made sure I went to our local expert. So thanks, Randy, for the conversation. It was very helpful to me. And just a reminder for everybody around the table, we have our own expertise in St. John there helping lead the way as well. So thanks, Randy, and I'm certainly in favor of the motion. Thank you.
Okay, that's it. I want to thank Randy for coming this evening as well, and thank you for being here with us tonight. It's really important for us. The only comment I will make is that I do sit on the 8 cities of New Brunswick, and we have talked about it there, and I've been to the Mayor's Congress for the Atlantic Mayor's Congress, and so that's where I guess we first heard about it, or I should say I first heard about it. The terminology is different. They referred to it as BIG, which is easy for me to remember, the basic income guarantee versus the language that we've got here, the guaranteed livable basic income. So I find like sometimes the language, it can be confusing of what it actually is we're talking about. Is it one and the same? And when I read through, there was a significant amount of literature in the kit. And so when I read through the literature, it said basically those two are interchangeable with the names that they have. The other thing that's important is that we distinguish the difference between this and a living wage, which I think sometimes gets confused with this as well for the average population. And I'm assuming that this will be somewhat similar to the Guaranteed Income Supplement or the GIS that is provided for seniors based on assessment or whatever. So it's a great idea, and it's been great to have you here tonight to be able to answer any questions and to just hear some of the comments from my team here and all the literature that was provided. It's been helpful as well. So really appreciate you being here. All right, team, so I will pass it over to you. We've got a motion on the floor, so if there are any other questions for our guests, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you for being here. Good night. City Clerk, next item.
Next item is a business matter, the Chief Administrative Officer update on select catalytic projects and advocacy.
Over to you, CAO.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. For the update on catalytic projects, I'll provide another brief update on the 8 projects this evening, given that we've had good progress on a number of them just since the last update before the holidays. And starting off first with the innovative Central Peninsula Learning Commons. The project has had significant community involvement, and the location of the new Central Peninsula Learning Commons was announced by the province, the site being Rainbow Park, and the province will work on the design through 2023 with construction commencing in 2024. The intention to complete the construction to allow the start of the academic school year in the fall of 2026. Switching now to Fundy Key. On the Fundy Key market slip, the seawall work is 100% complete, and the site preparation work to turn the site over to the developer, the remainder of the site is nearing completion, and we're actually looking at a substantial completion on the remainder of that site turnover at this time. And as we heard this evening with the Section 59 condition amendments, things are moving forward as it relates to the development. As far as the new comprehensive recreation facility, planning work for the new comprehensive recreational facility is an important item for our work plan in 2023. Thanks to the budget money we do have now in a reserve, we will be actively pursuing funding opportunities associated with that opportunity. And moving to investment in industrial parks, work on the value chain analysis was awarded to Deloitte and is being completed in a phased approach, and stakeholder engagement sessions are actively underway, and in fact they're nearly completed. So the focus is currently shifting to identifying the target sectors and the customer targets, and pre-work has been completed with the planning, preliminary scoping of operating and funding models, governance structures, and expansion locations and partnership opportunities. So city team has developed a marketing and communication scope for 2023, and we'll commence that procurement process, and this will be a key project as part of our 2023 work plan as we work toward the creation of the 10-year strategic plan for industrial parks. And there will be other engagement sessions in addition to the ones that have already been held to allow the process of providing input into the 10-year strategic plan. And switching now to the 4 catalytic advocacy projects, so starting with the comprehensive tax reform. Again, the current focus, not much has changed on this one. The current focus is understanding the opportunities and challenges as it relates to the Regional Service Commission model. And things are getting underway there with the new head of the Regional Service Commission, Phil Willett. Matching dollars for bilateral, thanks to the province and the federal government, and in particular MP Long, for their support on the projects to date. Many city applications have been approved, and we're awaiting word on a couple of 2023 projects. And I know one of them was approved at the provincial level and has been moved forward to Infrastructure Canada. So we remain optimistic on those remaining couple of projects. And as it relates to affordable housing, council, for the public's information, council recently approved the Affordable Housing Action Plan and is active in advancing several plan initiatives to accelerate the supply of affordable housing and to capitalize on the recently announced Rapid Housing Initiative grant program. The city is leading a coordinated municipal-led application partnership with various nonprofit entities on the application process. So this coordinated approach is with the goal of leveraging resources from other levels of government to address the city's urgent need on affordable housing crisis. And the Affordable Housing Grant Program will be presented shortly by our Chair of Growth. We'll provide some of the details, and with council's approval, we look forward to opening the 30-day cycle tomorrow and launching that. So to support the plan's objective to see the city take a stronger role in coordination, the city is actively still recruiting for an affordability planner who will play a role in facilitating the implementation of housing action in coordination with the other levels of government. And the city is reviewing options as it relates to the creation of the municipal housing entity. And moving on now to post-secondary education. Since my last update, a lot of progress has been made here in December with significant announcements. So on Friday, December 16th, an announcement was made at New Brunswick Community College Trades and Education Center on Grandview Avenue, where the province and the federal government each announced they would be investing $22.9 million into NBCC. So funds will be used to expand that center, and it will increase the number of student seats from 356 to 600, nearly a 70% increase, which is impressive for our community, and this will have a number of positive impacts on St. John. The work on NBCC will take 2 to 3 years to complete. And then shortly thereafter, on Monday, December 19th, an announcement was made at UNB St. John, and in total, between the federal, provincial, and UNB, a total of approximately $40 million has been committed. And UNB anticipates some further funding through their fundraiser, so we'll be in around the $40 million mark, and that will involve the construction of the new building that will become the Health and Social Innovation Center right here in St. John. So with that, Your Worship, that concludes my verbal update, subject to any comments or questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you. So just for the public's information, we had declared 4 catalytic projects and 4 advocacy projects, and you've just received an update on all of them, and I think it sounds like all of them are moving forward and are all very positive, so it's all great news on all 8 of those fronts, pretty much. All right, so I'll need a receive and file from Councillor Killen and Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. City Clerk, next item.
12.2, transit transformation.
Transit transformation. Over to you, Commissioner Hugenholtz. Welcome to the podium.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. This will be the first time that I'm briefing you directly on transit-related items. Of course, we all know that Mr. Fogan is transitioning into his new role there as Commissioner of Utilities and Infrastructure. We are working hard on the new director position for transit and anticipate being able to make an announcement soon. I do want to recognize the transit team that are with me here this evening. We have Nancy Moore, Kevin Lockery, and Charlie Freak, who have been doing the bulk of the heavy lifting on this transforming transit project, which has been very considerable. I liken this to cramming in about 5 or 6 years of work into 1 or 2. It does really feel like sometimes we're boiling the ocean. It's a complete transformation in the way we're delivering that service over a very short amount of time, and that work wouldn't get done without the hard efforts of the folks here. I also recognize Nick Cameron, the chair of the board, is here as well. So what you have in front of you is essentially a much larger presentation that was this information has been pulled from previous presentations, including to our transit board and to other stakeholder groups. So there are something like 32 slides in total. That's not my intent to cover each and every one of those. I think we'd be here till the wee hours. So I do want to kind of go through it very quickly, focusing in on some areas in particular, touching on some of the main highlights of our Transforming Transit project. And then I will break for any questions that I may lean heavily on my team here with me for that. So just the project goals of this transformation are in front of you here. And essentially these kind of work together. The goals of efficiency and making this transit a more desirable option kind of reinforce the other goals of getting more people to use that system, which will in turn shore up our sustainability of the service. So these goals are essentially, they are supporting one another. We want to make sure we have the right buses at the right times, running trips where there is demand, and get away from running buses essentially on fixed routes. So a lot of the change is focused on that efficiency piece, kind of trying to better match our service delivery with the demand. So the values that the planning team used to guide them in this transformation, I guess I want to mainly recognize that this is kind of intended to reflect the recognition of the importance of this service, both as an economic driver for our community, but also as an essential service to connect citizens with job and educational opportunities. This basically, our transit service also reinforces our green contribution. So we're looking at as well cost savings for citizens during a period of high inflation. Those pressures are everywhere, and having a good public transportation option, I think, is becoming even more important year by year. We're trying to do that in a way as well that is financially responsible. So a lot of that will rely on leveraging existing technology and new technology to deliver some of these services more efficiently. So in terms of the planning principles, again, I think we have spoken to council about this before, and we've spoken to many other service groups. I'll just focus on the highlighted area there. This is what we've been trying to achieve with the redesign of that system. Basically trying to make sure that we offer very, very good service to the bulk of our citizens. So we're trying to have 70% of the population within 1,250 meters of the rapid routes. We're trying to make sure that 85% of the population has no more than 800 meters to any bus stop. The Commission endorsed a number of policies that guide this, and that's essentially we're trying to ensure that the distance to the bus stops are from a minimum of 400 meters to not more than 1,600 meters along the route. So the furthest walking distance at any one time would be 800 meters. So a lot of the sort of the minimum distance between the bus stops, 400 meters, is pulled from national best practices. And that's easy to achieve. All these goals are much easier to achieve in the dense neighborhoods. Certainly when we get into some of the areas on the outskirts of town where there's less density, it is more difficult to service those effectively with the transit system. You'll note again the notes about the bus stop in terms of the emphasis on quality over quantity. That rings a bell for me because we've had a lot of similar conversations when it comes to other types of service delivery. Certainly Play SJ, that was one of our main focuses, was recognizing that we had to condense down to a more manageable number and then focus on that quality. So a number of other planning principles are listed on this slide here. And I guess I just will quickly touch on a couple. In terms of the fare simplicity, under the old model, there was a number of different fares based on cash, monthly, or TransCard. And there would have been different categories within that for adults, seniors, children under 5, multiple children. It was very confusing and hard for people to understand it. So we are simplifying the fares, and the Commission did provide guidance to our team in terms of a fare policy to help us guide that. Again, in terms of designing the overall routes, we're looking at a hierarchy of routes. So looking at those main high trafficked areas and ensuring that we have good service on those, good regular service, looking at expanding the times for those, and then looking at alternative service delivery models such as transit on demand for other areas. We did hit the go button on transit on demand as of this morning. And so there's a zone on the west side that did transition to transit on demand. And so that system is active right now. And we actually have, just from today's use, it was encouraging. There was a high uptake there, more than we would have received when we had our normal route model there. So again, I touched on this in terms of our new routing goals. We intend to have those rapid routes that are the backbone of the system that carry the bulk of our ridership running at approximately 15-minute intervals. We have as well community fixed routes that link to our rapid routes, and where we're going to be running those on 30-minute intervals. Then there are the on-demand zones to capture sort of more of those low-use routes. And then on-demand deployment will also enable us to expand our service delivery times. And a good example of that would be, for example, even in our high-demand uses, there are certain hours that those fixed routes are going to be running. Outside of those times, we expect to offer some on-demand service to accommodate those lower demand periods. there are some changes to our routes and services. With any transforming transit project, there are going to be some tweaks that need to be made. And certainly looking at some of our main routes, there are some changes that we're looking to make. And I have up here just a map of Route 1, one of our rapid transit routes. And some of the particular changes there is that we are extending service now on a 15-minute basis over to the exhibition field house. So that's a significant recreational facility for us, and it also houses our community center in that facility as well. So we're expanding service there, but to essentially make sure that we can run on schedule, we are making a tweak on the other end and removing the link to the Fairville Plaza, which can be accessed via one of our other community routes. Later in 2023, we intend to be combining some of our other rapid routes. We're combining Route 3 with 9, and that'll essentially result in the route that you have here in front of us. And again, we are adding service with that route as well to the field house. And that will be one of the later changes that we make in this year. I wanted to give you a sense of what some of this looks like on an overall area map. So what you have in front of you there is the West Transit map. So it shows our main routes that service that area. Again, those would see the bulk of our ridership. And then highlighted in purple, you have the on-demand zone that will be serviced with our flex service. Similarly for east, you see our main routes there in green, and then the purple area that is going to be serviced as on-demand. And for south as well, this shows the main route. We did tweak this route, and now based on a lot of stakeholder input that we had, we are now linking that route to the Atlantic Superstore on Rossay Avenue, which has come up in a number of occasions with our ridership. This is the picture of the North and Milledgeville transit map. Again, the green shows our regular routes that are operating on a either 15-minute or 30-minute schedule. And then you have the large purple on-demand zone, which will be using the flex service. Just an example, this is the flex area on West. So what we're trying to achieve here, again, is good coverage overall. All of those red dots indicate a bus stop within that on-demand zone. So you can see we have a considerable amount of coverage. Folks in this area will be able to use the flex service and get picked up at their nearest bus stop. And that essentially will be within those target areas within 400 meters. This does also show that it does offer some enhanced service to areas that otherwise, or previously rather, did not have coverage. And Dominion Park is a good example of that. There are a couple stops, or there's a stop very nearby that area that can use the flex service. I want to talk a little bit about the technology that sort of underpins some of these changes. Our transit app here for St. John Transit, here are a number of features. It is integrated to allow for payment of your fares through the app itself. That's a great step forward towards that electronic fare collection, which is more convenient for our patrons, and it's as well in terms of our operation, it's much better for us. There are step-by-step directions through this app, so if you want to figure out how you want to get from one area of the city to the other, this app does help you figure out what buses to take and where to get your exact stop. It does link as well to the on-demand transit app. It also enables you to track where the bus is. Like if you're waiting for a stop, you'll be able to see where the bus is relative to your stop and get a sense of how soon you'll be picked up. There's a new feature as well that we call Rate My Ride. So customers will have the ability to provide feedback on the road, on the service, both through a star rating, but as well through comments if necessary. So in terms of the on-demand booking app, that's the St. John Transit Flex app. That is available through the App Store. Should work on any phone. That's certainly one of the options, probably the most convenient option for booking an on-demand pickup. There are other options, though, that I want to highlight. You can certainly go on the website to book a ride. You can also phone in to our number there to book one of these flex rides. So again, it is an easy interface for people to use. It even has walking instructions to get to your nearest bus stop to access that service. I'll touch on a little bit on our communications effort. With any big change like that, there is going to be a lot of questions from the community. There's a lot of work that we need to do to get the message out about these changes. And our team has worked quite hard on that. It says select communications. I would say extensive communications. Certainly we've posted up information about these changes at all our bus shelters. In all our buses, we have some advertisement there to notify people of the upcoming changes. We've undertaken a number of stakeholder meetings, both at community centers, at the Learning Exchange. We have a number of meetings set up at the West Library as well to introduce people to this, to walk them through how to access this, how to download the app, how to book a ride, as well as to answer any other questions that they have about this change. We've also been doing some radio advertising and advertising through other media. We put out various brochures at the library, community centers, our bus pass vendors as well. And we have had a presence this summer at a number of different community events in our community, including 506, Passport to Parks, and the City Night Market. So that concludes my presentation. I'll pause here if there are any questions. I do want to highlight that there are a number of other slides attached here that do include some additional information on the project. Again, I do want to thank the team that's here with me this evening. And with that, I will stop for any questions that there may be.
All right, any questions for the commissioner? Councillor Harris, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to tip my hat to the team that's here. I know you already did it, Commissioner Hugenholz, but it is a really major undertaking. I don't think we've really tracked or articulated the mountainous undertaking this has been, and it's monumental for this entire side of the country to have on-demand transit service being rolled out, having some of the first electric buses in the country on the road, especially at the 12-passenger level, securing bigger electric buses during some serious supply chain constraints with new partners. The work that the team has done to get this to a place where it's tangible. I got off the bus in the number 12 this morning coming in from Martinon. I saw somebody, she's in the crowd here, Nancy from the transit team, getting off the on-demand service right in time to grab that number 1 uptown. And so to see it rolling out and to see it with your own eyes, it's really encouraging. And to know that there is just hundreds of more people right now on the west side that are going to be able to grab a bus that they can predict, whose time they can predict and arrange to get where they need to go, is hugely different than the situation that we just had where you were on their clock. Now you get to be on your clock. And you get the benefit of knowing that bus you're connecting to at Lancaster Mall, for example, on the west side, that's running faster to the uptown, to the east side. And in some cases, longer hours, weekend hours. All of these are big improvements. So it's it's a big deal for us, and I think it's going to pay dividends for our city. Obviously, it aligns with major components of our 10-year strategic plan. It's a way for us to retain immigrants. It's a way for us to make different parts of the city look attractive to newcomers who are coming here, where there is predictability around transportation. I mean, our family went down to a single car last year, and it's the quickest way to save $12,000 in your budget, right? So from a sustainability and resiliency perspective, this all green and like it hits every single part of our 10-year strat plan, which I think transit may be the only entity at the city level that does impact every single part of the 10-year strat plan, city's growth priorities, all of it. So anyway, it's a big congratulations. It's great to see, and I just want to thank everybody and yourself, Commissioner, for all the work that's gone into it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Redwine.
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, I feel like Councillor Harris said all these great accolades, which are well deserved. I mean, I think I'm just so excited about the technology, right? And my personal pet peeve was seeing empty buses. So I think these flex routes are going to be there so that, yes, we can service people, but service them when they need it. So it's wonderful news. I have a couple of questions I've had thrown to me over and over and over again. One of them is ward related. For Ward 4, people are wondering, is there any way to get like on-demand service, Loch Lomond Road out towards the airport and Redhead? That's one question.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Commissioner Fogan, if you want to take a crack at that one, or if we want to pull on Kevin or Charlie for that.
Yeah, through your worship, sure, Mike, I can try to handle that. We can. The on-demand is really good for smaller, more concentrated neighborhoods. Once you start sending a bus out a far distance, it becomes difficult for other people in the same area to request it. So our service levels end up being largely impacted the larger the area you go, especially a road like Loch Lomond Road, where it's one long road from one end to the other. What you can do in the future, and this would be a future build out, which Mike referenced in the slides, is that we can expand the on-demand service as we introduce on-demand in other parts of the area of the city. So if you're only, for instance, on the west side this morning, we have one bus covering that area. If we had several on-demand areas in the city, it becomes less onerous. Then we can send one bus further out along a single route while having the other buses cover the areas behind them. So once the on-demand gets expanded, that is certainly a possibility for us to do.
And I would think maybe citizens getting a hold of transit, if there's a need for certain areas, like the more that you would know, the more that, likely that you'd be able to go out to those areas. Other question that I have is, what advice would you give to people that are currently having long commutes with transit? For example, a student going from Lower or Upper West Side to NBCC.
I think there are various ways for them. I think they can use the tools to show what the most efficient way is to plan their route. And that should give details about, which buses to go on, where to transfer. It should all be laid out like that. But certainly some connections are going to be more difficult than others and perhaps more time consuming. I think that especially as we start to roll out these tools more, transit does become a better option essentially versus using a car. But it may not ever be the quickest way to get from one area to the other for all customers, depending on where they're coming from, where they're going.
Yeah.
It is really driven quite a bit by demand. If there's a high demand, then there's a service there to back it up.
So Commissioner Hugenholz, it seems like that app will do that. Is there any other way, if somebody who is not downloading an app onto a smartphone is able to kind of access that technology?
I think on the website or even calling,
Okay.
there should be help there to help them figure out how to get from one place to the other.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hickey?
Thanks, Worship. My question was mostly covered in asking about increasing it on demand. So I guess I'd just offer a kudos to staff for this project. It's been monumental, and certainly to the Transit Commission as well for their significant effort here. You know, things as simple as connecting Lower West to Sobeys without having to switch buses, and things like connecting Lower South End to Superstore without having to connect buses are huge, right? It creates dependable service that people know that will be there, that they can rely on, and it shouldn't take you an hour to get end up at a grocery store. Beyond that, making sure that that service is timely and efficient for people who are depending on a bus, whether it's to get to work, whether it's to access childcare, whether it's to use any of those services. And when transit, which has historically been a significant barrier to both poverty and to accessing more services and to employment and things like that, these are really important steps. So, you know, in a city built for cars with over 12,000 lane kilometers, no wonder a lot of the times people who don't have vehicles feel disconnected from their communities and feel disconnected from the city as a whole. So transit changes that, and this effort, I hope, will have massive changes in that. So kudos to everybody.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Killen?
Thank you, Your Worship. So, of course, with change brings great anxiety and fear and all kinds of things. So I know one of the bigger issues that the West Side obviously is experiencing some of the greater changes here. So I'm wondering if you can talk to me a little bit about paratransit and talk to me about how that is a potential option for folks. I know there's some concern about bus stops being moved, and I think we're North America's second most hilliest city or something. So just sort of what is our contingency plan for folks that really can't get to the new stop destinations?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, to the councillor, that's a very good question. And I expect that many of you will eventually start to hear concerns from their residents about a particular change. We undertake this change sort of at the policy level, and it was based on best national practices around the location of bus stops. So certainly with that, we are changing the location of some of these bus stops. And we have heard that some people who relied on that bus stop near their house, now perhaps they have to move or walk or get some distance to access that service. So, unfortunately, we can't deliver, or can't we design a service like this to sort of meet the needs of every particular individual for every particular case. So there are times when perhaps people will have to go a little bit longer distance to access the service. As you alluded to, certainly for people with mobility challenges, there are other options. St. John Transit does offer a paratransit option that essentially is door-to-door service. They just need to book it in advance, and we'll pick them up right from where they're going, or where they're leaving to where they're going. So a very good service there. That transit service itself is available everywhere where our normal routes offer, and even beyond. Our paratransit coverage area is in fact even larger than what's covered with our regular routes. So that certainly is an option, and I would encourage them to explore that if that is a concern for them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Norton?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I guess you had me at West Flex, so congratulations on boiling the ocean, Mike, you and your team, Ian, Nancy, Kevin, Charles, like the whole group. Nick, your leadership from a board perspective. If you haven't downloaded the app, I don't know if people have. I got it. I did it tonight. So we're reading the kits right on the App Store. It's super easy. It's user friendly. The interface is clean. Registration is absolutely seamless. Throw in your cell phone number, get your verification code, put your name. If you want, you can put your mugshot. They don't want that. You're good to go. You're good to ride. So, yeah, we've heard there's been growing pains, as Councillor Killen said, but everything from the West Flex map to the convenience stops. We've heard it from our councillor at large, all the way from Martin on up top. I took a spin with my kiddos. It was cool. It's a great venture. It's light years ahead. So I can't say it better than Mr. Huguenot's already has. It, like boiling the ocean is it's a smart way of putting it, but looks like you did it. So well done. Hats off. And I'd say for at least from this guy, this is a huge good news story that may not get as much praise as it warrants. So hopefully where the growing pains maybe go, ridership takes over, and I have no doubt that it will. So congratulations.
Well, that's it for questions or comments from council, but I will say that I have been on transit. I'm not on it now. I was on it from 2012 until I became the mayor. So I spent 9 years on transit, and it's one of the files that's closest to my heart, and it's wonderful to see this transition. And Nick, thank you for coming tonight, and you do have a powerhouse team with Nancy and Kevin and Charlie. Charlie's been there longer than I was at transit. And it was great timing for Ian to take over at a time when, the previous council we committed to, and this council especially had committed to transit and making those big moves. And we've got, now you have 3 councillors on your transit team. And I think that's really important because it gives a better voice. You've got a cross-section from all over the city. And it has been a monumental project, but it's been the commitment really of this team that's put it together. And so it's really wonderful to see it come to fruition. We have what we call priorities, but they're really values that we live by as council, and it's your grow, green, move, and it hits all of those boxes, belong, and even it's economic, so it's perform for us as well. So every box it hits for the values that we hold as council. And I think though it's tricky for us because we are 300 plus square kilometers. We have 600 kilometers of roads. So it's hard to send a bus along 600 kilometers of road and hit everyone and yet get you to your job on time and in an efficient way. So we're always balancing that, and that's always been the balance of council and the transit team, is to try to get that balance right. So I think we're definitely in the right direction with it now. And people often will say to me, I don't see anyone on the bus. I say to them, get on the bus then. Like, don't complain to me about there's no one on the bus. Get on the bus. Use the bus. We need to save that service. We need to promote that service. So I do thank the team for being here tonight and for all the work that they've done over the last couple of months. Thanks to my 3 councillors that are on transit as well, and to the whole council team who have supported this initiative. It's been really amazing to see it evolve. So thank you. Okay, City Clerk. Next item, please. Oh, sorry, not next item yet. I have to get a receive and file. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Lowe on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, next item. Next item now.
The next item is a report from the Growth Committee Community Enhancement Project.
Councillor Killen, over to you.
Thank you so much, Your Worship. Okay, I'm pleased. I'm pleased to bring the next item before Common Council. It is a report brought to you from the Growth Committee on the Community Enhancement Program, which began in 2022 at the direction of Common Council. Under the project, city staff conducted a holistic evaluation of property and community standards. The project took an in-depth look at how our bylaw compliance programs can have a greater impact on council's priorities, how to synergize compliance efforts with the city's strategic direction, and also identified various opportunities for the city to improve existing programs. As a result of this evaluation, there are a number of improvements being implemented. Some of these improvements include the expansion of the developer notification list, enhancing of our minimum property standards program, and piloting an unsightly repair program for vacant buildings, among other items, which is very exciting to Growth Committee. There are also further improvements recommended that require change at the provincial level to implement. Growth Committee is recommending that Common Council pursue these changes with the province. This includes legislative changes to allow for an effective vacant building tax and/or a vacant building permit linked to the property tax system, and improvements to the tax sale process to better address abandonment. Pursuing these changes at the provincial level would be an ongoing effort throughout 2023, one we're well aware of. If approved, these efforts would start with a letter from the mayor and on behalf of Common Council requesting meetings with the appropriate provincial ministers to open the discussion on these issues. Growth Committee is also recommending that the beautification policy be amended for 2023 to move the program to the north end. This will assist the community-based efforts our compliance programs will be undertaking moving forward. The improvements and recommendation changes developed under the Community Enhancement Project will provide the city with a variety of tools to intervene earlier on our enforcement processes. This will prevent deterioration, reduce vacancy, and reduce the need for city demolitions. These improvements will allow for future growth, create safe, livable neighborhoods, cultivate community pride, and prevent loss of housing stock to ensure long-term affordability. So if I could get a seconder supported.
Sorry, Harris?
Okay. And Commissioner Hamilton and the team are here for any questions.
Okay, so I have Councillor Ogden first up for a question. Councillor?
Just want to commend everybody who's involved with this. This is fabulous, fabulous news. No more vacant, dirty lots, no more dilapidated buildings, no more painting of buildings, and no more tall ladders. So thank you for everyone. Thank you very much.
It's good news for you, you're right. Councillor Redwine.
Cute. Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Commissioner Hamilton, actually, I have a question that, Mayor, I know this has been a thorn in your side over the years too. This is all great news, first of all, but I'm just wondering if there is any, if there's any room to be taxing vacant lots higher as well. I know you guys are shooting for the stars already, and I commend you on that. I just thought I'd ask if that's something that could be looked at.
I'm going to invite Ben Purrington to come down and speak to that issue, Councillor.
Through your worship to the councillor, the project was primarily focused on like the deterioration of buildings and how we improve our property compliance program. So it wasn't something that we looked into within the scope of the project. Sure. That said, it could be something that could be considered down the line, especially if we're successful in getting the vacant building tax and or registry.
Sure, it's been great work, and I would encourage residents to take a look at your report. I loved your report. It was really thorough. It touched on everything, and I'd encourage people that are interested to take some time to read it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hickey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I'd just say, again, a thanks for the effort in this. Our advocacy in terms of improving the tax sale process will prove significant, I hope, for our community. Once, that process, which has been reiterated by countless members of our community and experts in the field as well, says that the process is too clunky, it's too slow, and it's ensuring that properties remain vacant and remain unfixed. Further to that, if any time a project moves beyond the tax sale process into Department of Transportation and beyond that, the properties are doomed. A vacant property can't stand vacant for 5+ years in our climate and still be salvageable. Kudos on that. Your Worship, you've said it countless times as I've been around this table, it's too cheap to own dilapidated buildings and vacant land in the city. That's important. Advocacy has been held around this table as well on that one. Looking forward to that. My question is on the beautification grant, more so the long-term intention for it and where we see that program progressing. I think it's an incredibly successful one. I think it's a big feather in our cap. I used it this year and fixed my own home up because of and it was because of that grant that I was able to do so. So I'm just curious as to where it goes from here. Excited to see it move to the north end. Still massive need elsewhere in the community for it. So I'm wondering where we go.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Hickey. So Council has identified in the corporate work plan the expansion of the Urban Development Incentives Program to beyond the Central Peninsula to other areas of the city. So the team is actively working on scoping that out, and we'll be presenting recommendations later this year to inform the budget process. The intent of this is really to accelerate the beautification grant program, which was key in really kickstarting development on the Central Peninsula. We did that in parallel with the development of the neighborhood plan for the Central Peninsula, and it was really instrumental. So we see this as something that will see positive change as council and staff move forward to launch the North End neighborhood plan. So we'll be back to you with further details on the overall program, including changes to the policy, but certainly wanted to accelerate this initiative.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I hope we're bold on this, and I hope that we're able to really recognize the impact that this program has had. I think, it speaks for itself, and be able to develop that further. And the more we can make sure that we are avoiding the 111 King Street East, dare I say it, the more we are avoiding those decisions by this table, the better, because we shouldn't be. We should be ensuring that we have processes that are protecting our built buildings and making sure that we are protecting from dilapidation like we're seeing now. So kudos to everybody on that. Thank you.
Councillor Sullivan, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think what we have in front of us is another great example of the committee system working. Can't imagine back when I was, on council 2008, council as a whole taking a deep dive into this and everything else that we do. So thanks so much for this coming forward. I guess my ask for committee and or staff, when we're having discussions as councillors with our counterparts at the province with regards to tax reform and all that, I see this fitting in. We get those vacant properties no longer being vacant. That is more taxes for the city of St. John. If all of council could get supplied with a little bit of a fact sheet behind this, so that helps us when we're having those conversations for those of us who don't have the depth of knowledge that the growth committee might have. Thanks.
Good point, yeah, for sure. Councillor Killen.
I can let Councillor Harris go first since I already spoke. Go ahead.
All right, sorry. Councillor Harris, and then we'll go back to Councillor Killen for her second go-round.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Your Worship, just trying to sum up some of the conversations we had around growth committee. These have been ongoing conversations around legislative realities, but really it all ties into our strategic plan, but also it ties into our agenda to grow. And it ties into things like public safety. Like, this is one of those issues. We know that a boarded up building, you'd be hard pressed not to find a mountain of research on the broken window theory. We know that a boarded up building deteriorates community wellness and well-being. It forces people out of their communities. It creates an undignified living condition. So it ties into so many areas. Councillor Hickey mentioned it's too cheap to own a building, but it costs the city a lot to service a boarded up building. Chief Clifford's got to send firefighters over there to check on that fair amount of time. Police officers have to respond to it when they get broken into, when there's people living into it. So, and so my hope is that we can continue this conversation and that the public will start to pile onto it, because we know how slow things can be at the provincial level. And we really do need our community to grab onto this and work with us and petition those right people at these different levels of the provincial level to get this advocacy moved forward. Because quite honestly, Moncton and Fredericton and Bathurst and Miramichi and every other community in this province don't have this issue. We do. It's ours, and we need to own it. And so I'm echoing a little bit of Councillor Radwan's point here. We have a great report to stand on. We have some things to tie it to, but we really can't stress this, that it's important for the community to grab it. And it not just be us that's saying this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Killen, back to you.
Sure. I just wanted to tie this up really quickly with the thank you about this one, because it was one that upon arriving at growth and arriving on council was something that we have seen from the start to finish. I believe it's like we've watched this happen. So that's incredible, but that's because of city staff. That's because of Ben's brilliant writing, and my comments today were your words really in helping me understand this issue and so deeply. So to Councillor Sullivan's point, I think this committee structure works well when we can take these deep dives and work together with you and Commissioner Hamilton and Amy Poffenroff, and y'all are the experts. So thank you for educating us and finding us a pathway forward that I think is really going to be super meaningful to the community and those other communities in New Brunswick that have this issue too in some way, shape, or form. We're going to help make New Brunswick better by advocating for these incredible changes. So big appreciation for y'all, and I will stop gushing now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben, I'll just make a couple of comments. One is that, I mean, it's fantastic work and it's needed. So we really appreciate it. We know that if you're doing this, you're not doing something else, and we know how stretched the services are for the department. But I do have a question about just insurance for vacant houses. I'm wondering if you had a look at that at all across the country. I think London, Ontario requires it. I know when we were working on our building, while it was vacant, my insurance rate was through the roof. It cost me a fortune on a monthly basis to have a vacant building. So, and as Councillor Harris mentioned, you know, it's the citizens that are paying to for the surveillance for the buildings with fire and police, et cetera. So that was one thing. And the other thing I was curious about was just even resources, as I see, you know, trying to get some compliance with some of the things that we're working on now. You'll see, like, if a building's been taken down, you'll see the lot gets sprayed green, and the next thing you know, a bit of grass and whatever comes up. But then over time, there are cars on that lot. So how do you know, how do we go forward so we end up with a parking lot that's not paved and not curbed and not, as Councillor Lowe would say, flowered or landscaped? So is there, like, I guess it'd be nice to also improve some of that as well as we move forward. Like, so I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, Your Worship, we're going to be going back to Growth Committee, I believe early in 2023, with some extra recommendations around resourcing. So we kind of I guess, supplement some of the recommendations in the report and kind of have a more, I guess, overall holistic approach with bylaw enforcement with increased resourcing. So as for the insurance piece, it wasn't something that we dived into deeply in terms of developing legislation that requires insurance. I might refer the question to Melanie if she has any insight to provide on.
I don't even know if it's permissible by the province, for starters, you know, so it's not
right.
that I need an answer tonight or anything. I just was curious about it.
At this point right now, it's not. It would be something we need to advocate for on top of the other items that we're recommending. But I'm not familiar with any. You mentioned London. It wasn't something that I came across in my research.
Right. Okay.
There we go. We haven't looked at that, Your Worship, and I think it's worth looking into, so we'll certainly work in conjunction with Ben's team to look at that. By the time they come back to you, we could have a response to that.
All right, thank you. All right, Ben, I loved your report, 27 pages, I think it was. It was fantastic, read every one of them. It's very encouraging, and it's very exciting, actually, to read that and to see where where we're going. So thank you again. And there are no more questions here for you, so I'm going to call the question Councillor Killen read the recommendations. So, and the motion is on the floor and been seconded. So all in favor? 2 votes. 2 votes from Councillor Ogden, and opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item is 13.2, a report from the Growth Committee Affordable Housing Grant Program.
Back over to you, Councillor Killen, as the Chair of Growth.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of love being the growth chair. It's always something excellent happening. So on behalf of the Growth Committee, I'm pleased to introduce the Affordable Housing Action Grant Program for Council's consideration. The purpose of the Affordable Housing Grant Program is to help increase the number of affordable units in our community. This grant makes use of the one-time $800,000 funding allocation to the city to award the projects that will make the biggest difference in terms of overall number of units, innovation, and how they respond to gaps in the market. Grant funding is calculated on a per unit basis of $10,000 per affordable unit for nonprofit housing providers and $8,000 per unit for private developers. Through this top-up grant, in addition to needing to conform to the city's plans and bylaws, all projects must be eligible to receive funding through either the province's Affordable Housing Rental Program or a CMHC funding program. Doing so will ensure that a minimum 20-year depth of affordability is achieved. Hopefully more. This program is one of several actions that the Growth Committee has worked with staff on to deliver on the city's new Affordable Housing Action Plan. And this new program is action number 13, actually, in the action plan, under the theme of supporting and investing in non-market housing solutions. Since Growth Committee met in December, staff have drafted an application form and an agreement template for successful applicants, both of which are found in your kit. If the program is approved by council, the first funding cycle will actually begin on January 10th, so tomorrow, and be open for 30 days, and the development community will be invited to apply for funding. Staff is also present to answer any specific questions with regard to the program. So finally, to help me introduce this item, we have a short video to play to highlight the Affordable Housing Action Plan and remind council and the public of this important initiative. Thank you very much. So right now, if you have any questions, Planner Andy Reid and Commissioner Jacqueline Hamilton are here for any questions.
Okay. Do I have any questions for Commissioner Hamilton or for Councillor Killen? I don't see any. So did you put the motion on the floor? Yes. Okay. I have a seconder. Councillor Hickey on the seconder? Okay. Any questions? So if there are no questions, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Congratulations, Growth Committee. Good work. Okay, next item. Oh, no.
Motion to adjourn.
That's it? That's it? That's okay. I guess it looks like we're done, folks. So we've come to the end of our evening. So we want to say thank you to everyone for attending tonight. Thank you to the public for tuning in. Thank you to staff for all your hard work. Thank you for few people that arrived tonight in the audience. And tonight, you know, I heard a lot about Moncton and Fredericton. And I'm going to say this, and it's my New Year's resolution. I've said it before, that comparison is the thief of joy. I just want to look at your agenda and see all the wonderful things that happened tonight. Forget about Moncton and Fredericton. Just keep going forward. We're doing a great job. Your staff's doing a great job. This team is doing a great job. So you've got a brand new city manager. He's doing a great job. So, you know, I think that we just need to keep moving forward, very positive, and look at the wonderful things that we are doing. So I'll end on that note. Wish you all a happy new year. I'm wishing you all health, prosperity, happiness. I've celebrated a lot in New Year's. I hope I've got a lot more left. But anyway, so I will say good night, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Lowe is right up on that, and Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Good night. Thank you, Hickey.